Hey everyone, it is Haley here, also known as Gabrielle for the Facebook folks. And today we will be continuing our series on God's generals, more specifically on George Fox. He goes back in time a little farther than the previous God's generals we've done, but I think you guys will really like this one. I know it's one of my favorites, so we will just jump right in. It says, George Fox was born in Drayton-in-the-Clay, Leicestershire, England, about the year 1624. His parents were Christopher and Mary Fox, and they raised George in a Christian home. He was different than his siblings in that he seemed to have a greater desire to seek out the things of God. He took a job tending sheep, which suited his desire and temperament. Oh, that's cool. We know King David, he was a shepherd, so George is in good company here. Says, when he was about 20, he went on a spiritual pilgrimage and sought out people who had singular relationships with God. He became impressed with the need to wait on God. He began to see that for in the Word was life, and that life was the light of men. Fox struggled in his relationship with God. In 1647, he met with many people, and yet none could answer the longing of his heart about the reality of God. Fox writes, I quote, "One day, when I had been walking solitarily abroad and was come home, I was taken up in the love of God, so that I could not but admire the greatness of his love. And while I was in that condition, it was opened unto me by the eternal light and power, and I therein clearly saw that all was done and to be done in and by Christ, and how he conquers and destroys this tempter the devil, and all his works, and is atop of him, and that all these troubles were good for me, and temptations for the trial of my faith, which Christ has given me." So it's interesting, here he talks about Jesus being like on top and over all of the devil, and that he destroys the devil. And we know in Acts 10:38 we are told that Jesus Christ came to destroy the works of the devil. So George Fox is just kind of going a little more in depth with that verse. Okay, it says, George Fox began to preach on having a personal relationship with God outside of the context of the religious structure. So yeah, if you guys remember, like at this time, there was a lot of different things going on in England. So it's great to see that he's really making it clear that there needs to be that personal relationship with Jesus, because a lot of it was like religious stuff, go to church and do this and do that, but you don't really work on the personal relationship, so he was really stressing that part of it. It says, okay, he began to preach on having a personal relationship with God outside of the context of the religious structure. The power of God began to fall as he preached. One man named Brown, who was dying, had visions and prophecies about the call on George Fox's life. When he died, the joy of the Lord fell on Fox, and his understanding of the love of God increased significantly. Kind of reminds you of Elijah and Elisha there, like kind of handing off the mantle. So it says, in 1648, as Fox preached, and the house he was in was shaken. He taught that the church was the people and Christ was the head. He also taught that men must be led by the Holy Spirit within their own lives. He struggled against the religious leaders of the day and often came into conflict with religious authorities. Wherever he went, people would come under conviction. All right. One day, God told him to go to court, and he spoke to a man on trial who was a drunkard, a pimp, and a cheat. The man came under such conviction that he could hardly stand. Wow, interesting. So he like literally must have felt the tangible presence of God when George came in, and he fell under conviction. When the trial was over, he followed Fox and repented. All right. In 1650, Fox was asked to pray with a dying man. He shared the gospel with him and prayed for his healing. The man recovered from that time on. Okay. Fox preached in Derby and was put in jail as a blasphemer. This lasted a year. Wow. This is like putting me in mind of literally like Peter, James, and John, like the apostles. George Fox had a very interesting life. So it says, Fox regularly experienced prophetic calls to action. While in Litchfield, Fox had an experience where God told him to take off his shoes. He was filled with the fire of God, and seeing a river of blood in the city, went about it crying out against the blood of the city. He found out later that the Roman Emperor Diocletian had 1,000 Christians murdered there in that same spot. Wow, that's crazy. People would fall under great conviction during his teaching. He described one meeting. I quote, "For that which arose from the weight and oppression that was upon the Spirit of God in me would open people, strike them, and make them confess that the groans which broke forth through me did reach them. For my life was burdened with their profession without possession, and their words without fruit." That's really cool. Over the years of his life, he traveled all over England, Scotland, Ireland, and America, preaching the news of the leading and infilling of the presence of God. He was often jailed, beaten, and abused as he did so. His life was difficult, and he would sleep under fences, hedges, and haystacks, often going without food. By the time of his death on January 3rd, 1691, the laws of the land had been changed, so that the religious freedom was allowed in England. Seems like he had a lot to do with that. The power of God had been with him, and his journal of 150 miracles was published. He had pressed on when the abuse and persecution had driven many others out of the limelight. Wow, that's really interesting. I'll have to try to get a hold of his journal. Maybe I could do another video on that if I get a hold of it. So that was just super incredible, and his life was a little different maybe than some of the others that we've read about, but I thought it was really encouraging. It's interesting that even from a young age, his parents kind of noticed that he was different and really wanted that personal relationship with the Lord. So for any of my young listeners, that's my encouragement to you, is don't let age stop you. I know in the book of Timothy in the Bible, it talks about don't let people despise your youth, but be an example to all men. So whatever age you are, definitely be fulfilling the call that God has for you, and don't neglect that at all. If he gave you some sort of a thought or a vision or an idea of something that he wanted you to do, whether it was yesterday, today, or 20 years ago, it's not too late to fulfill that call. So just every day, go forth and move forward in your relationship with the Lord. Never get stagnant in it. Don't become lukewarm. We always want to keep going and keep moving forward. Keep pressing into the Holy Spirit. And as always, faith is a muscle, so we want to use it so we do not lose it. Thank you all, and blessings on each and every one of you. May you fulfill every single good plan and purpose that God has for you. Until next time, thank you. Bye.